All right, it looks like we have everybody who are supposed to join, they've joined. So let's get started. Over to you, Sunil.
Hey guys, how are you? I hope everybody had a nice or a good Easter break, and you're back. So this particular session is a continuation of what we discussed last time. However, as part of that discussion last time, we did talk a lot about this particular stack here on the right hand side of your screen, where as to what DevOps is, what the journey looks like, what DevOps intends to achieve in an organization, and we did look at some of the tools that a DevOps resource or a DevOps person uses in his day-to-day life, right? So continuing on that, this particular session is set up to focus more in terms of labs or trying some things out on a console. Now, in this slide, what you can see here is we have what I've just covered what we have done so far in terms of what DevOps is and what are the steps that or how the journey of DevOps is in an organization. The next step is now, or in this session, we're going to do a lab, so which is what we'll be concentrating on. I've chosen Vagrant and sample application to test or to give you a demo of what the journey is. Having said that, we do have some more labs or additional sessions in this where you can see some of the tools in action, understand the benefits of automation and why we need a continuous feedback loop or what we can improve on. Right. Now, having said that, let's quickly proceed. Again, I'll try to keep the session within time. I know last time we exceeded the time by some margin. However, this time let's try to keep it short and precise. I will answer all of the questions at the end of the session. That way, everybody has some time to think about what's happening and pop in all the questions there is. So yeah, you can use the Q&A section on your Windows, and you can start popping in questions as and when you get them. Right. So let's start now. Right. So what are we going to do here? So what we are trying to achieve is use a tool called Vagrant to deploy an application, right? A simple setup that an organization uses every day. Now, I've chosen Vagrant here because it'll help us run this or test this locally. Although we could use AWS EC2 to do the same, although the diagram here says EC2, we will first do this locally or demo this locally, and probably in the next session, we'll do this on AWS, right? So that was not everybody needs to sign up for an AWS account or whatever if you want to test this out yourself. Now, I will just list out the steps here and go for a bit more or go in a bit more detail, probably in the next slide. So what are we going to do here? We're going to use VirtualBox to spin up our virtual machines. We also install Vagrant. In my case, Vagrant's already installed. We'll write a Vagrant file, which is nothing but the configuration code for the virtual machine itself. And then for the application, we've chosen WordPress, and we'll install it on the Vagrant box. Once all this is done, we'll discuss the advantages of this approach. We'll discuss the disadvantages of this approach, because again, if you see the diagram on the top right-hand side of the corner or of the presentation, it's the continuous feedback loop that is required as part of a DevOps engineer. So we'll do all that, and at the end of the day, we'll just destroy or delete everything we did. That way, you don't consume your laptop resources or whatever, right? Now, moving on to the next session. Now, everybody could, well, this is just a recap of what we discussed last time, but I'll still tell this again. Vagrant, what is Vagrant? You might have that question. Vagrant is a tool for building and managing or maintaining a virtual machine environment in a single workflow. Right. The basic unit of Vagrant, or a smallest unit of nomenclature in Vagrant, is called a box or a Vagrant box. This is nothing but a self-contained or a fully contained operating system image that's pre-configured. Right. And at the bottom of the screen here on the right hand side, you can see a sample Vagrant file that we have used, or that I'll be using. Right now, as part of this, just for someone who, or probably for a bit more understanding, what is a virtual machine? Virtual machine is nothing but a full-fledged operating system, like your Windows or Linux or whatever it is, that's running on a physical hardware, like your laptop or your desktop. Right? It's nothing but a virtualization of another operating system, where the operating system is running completely on code, and what it runs on is nothing but tools like VMware or VirtualBox or QEMU and things like that. There are many tools that do virtualization. So what Vagrant does is Vagrant tightly integrates with VirtualBox, although you can have it configured to use VMware or any other virtualization environment, including Docker, and then start preparing your full-fledged work environment. Now, once you have a box ready, you can save the box and then you can ship it out, upload it to your public Vagrant boxes here. You can create an account there and upload your box here, and then I can download the same box, and then I can replicate the same work environment that you have. So that way we eliminate the the changes in the environments or in the infrastructure that two people work on. So that way everybody gets the same box. Vagrant, again, the boxes are, the public boxes are listed here. You can go on this URL and search for many boxes. You'll have tons of Vagrant boxes available to use. And yeah, you can use them to either spin up just a blank environment or spin up and complete application stack end to end. Now that's Vagrant. In terms of application that we're going to deploy, we're going to use an application called WordPress. I don't know if you guys have heard of it, but WordPress is nothing but a free and open source content management system written in PHP, and it's paired with a database of some sort. In this case, it's MySQL or MariaDB, although you can pair it with other database types as well. Now, 70% of personal websites, or even more percentage of it, personal websites run on WordPress on the internet. The reason being, it's some of the reasons are being listed here because it's very easy to use. It has a very easy or simple to understand user management. There's media management. There's a theme system. You can extend WordPress with a plugin, and any website you host on it, either be it your blog or some website or a forum that you want to host, it makes your life a lot easier. Also, another advantage in this case is you have your data with you. You don't have to host it with somebody else. So if you have data sovereignty requirements, you can always host your own data and make sure all your data is safe and not hosted, say, in some other country or some other region and things like that. So that's WordPress for us. Now moving on, what are the components in WordPress? Now, at a very high level, WordPress is split into three components or three tiers. You have the data tier at the bottom here, which is where all your database is. The database here in this case is MySQL or MariaDB. All your data that any changes or any settings or any files that you upload, any website that you make, everything is stored in the database. And that way WordPress is easily extensible or can be easily backed up and things like that. Now, after that, there is a presentation tier or after that, there is a logic tier where which is where your application itself runs and which is where you administer WordPress from. So you do get a management interface in WordPress where you can maintain and manage the application, and then you can configure your website and do some setting changes and things like that, right? So that's the logical tier. And then finally, you have the presentation tier or the web tier, which is the actual website that the end users or the customers use. So in our case, we'll be doing all of this on a single machine. Having said that, probably in future classes, we'll probably split this out and see the benefits and disadvantages and all that. We'll discuss this once we get to that approach. Right. So moving on to the next slide. Now, before we jump into the labs, let's quickly discuss the advantages of having this kind of approach. So having a single machine that hosts WordPress and the machine itself, there are a couple of advantages that I could think of. One, it's easy to implement because everything is on a single machine. You don't need to SSH or log into multiple machines and do things or configure applications. You can test out your changes very easily and quickly, right? Because all you have to do is just get up a virtual machine, test your changes or deploy your changes there and see if it works. If it works, yeah, you can just leave the virtual machine as it is and off you go again, right? So that's another advantage. It can be used as a quick development environment. So that way you don't touch what is running in production. It can be, again, used to quickly test your changes and run tests and things like that. Right. And also the cost of deployment is less because you're not using any hardware, like in terms of virtual machines and things like that. It's easier for you to keep a tab on costs. Right now, again, so let's now discuss the disadvantages of it. Why we shouldn't be using such an approach. Now, because we are hosting everything on a single machine, there is chances of failure, right? So what happens if that machine dies? Tomorrow you're not able to power it on or whatever, right? So that's always a risk. Again, also what you're doing is now deploying everything on a single machine, which means the performance of the machine gets slower, or you need to allocate more resources to the machine in terms of CPU or memory or storage or anything of that sort. And assume tomorrow you get 1 million hits on your website and your machine is, because you're running it on a single machine, you can't easily scale. Scaling is again a problem. That way is you have a lot of issues, right? Again, and if somebody wants to test out your changes, or if you need to test your changes in parallel with something, you have, again, it's very, very difficult to set up another machine. Although in terms of virtual machines, you could save the image and then re-export it and things like that. And it is a bit complicated. It's not so easy as it sounds. So there are some disadvantages to this approach as well, right? Now, before we proceed to the next step, I'll just probably quickly check if you guys have posted any questions. I don't see anything. All right, so I think I'm almost ready to go to the labs section of this. However, there is a poll that I would want you guys to try and answer. That will give me a brief understanding of how you guys have thought of what DevOps is. Raj, I think if the poll is ready, can you let the guys know how they can access it and what they have to do?
All right. I'm enabling it, so you'll get an option. Can you please answer them, please?
Okay, we can see the poll on the screen. So guys, go ahead and answer the poll. It's a quick 5-minute poll. That way I just get a brief understanding of where everyone is at. And then if you have any further questions on this, we could, of course, discuss this after the session. Okay, we'll just wait 1 more minute for everybody to finish the poll, and then we'll probably continue with the labs. I'll slowly start looking at the results sometime later.
I think unless they complete the poll, they can't see the screen, I guess.
Ah, okay.
So don't worry about whether it's a right or a wrong answer, just submit, because we'll answer the question towards the end or somewhere in between.
Okay, so let's start. It's almost a minute now. Hope everybody has answered or submitted the questions. Don't worry if it's a correct answer or a right answer. We're not trying to judge you based on your skills. You just need to know how much this session has helped you. Right. So if you remember remember a couple of slides ago, I spoke about what we'd be demoing in this session. We said, all right, we'll probably give you another minute if you want. Okay. Just a couple of seconds. So we have 30 more seconds for the poll to end. And then I'll slowly start counting down when the timer is there. No, all right. So 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. All right. And we'll stop the polling now. We'll just capture whatever you have entered and we'll go from there. All right, now continuing with the session. So if you've noticed, we discussed what we'll do in this lab. Now, the first 2 sections in this lab, which is installing VirtualBox and Vagrant. I've already done this on my machine. It's already installed. For everybody's knowledge, I'm using a Mac, so everything's installed and the terminal is there. I'll slowly start a terminal, I'll share my terminal session here, and then we can then go ahead on seeing what's there and how we can install stuff, right? So let me quickly change the sharing window to my terminal, and I will also share, right now, I hope everybody can see this window, which is my terminal. I'm in a folder that I've already created where there is a Vagrant file, which is similar, or which is the exact same copy of what you saw on the presentation, right? Let me quickly increase the text so that people can see. Hopefully that's a lot better. Right now, how you can use Vagrant? It's very, very easy and very, very simple. So once you have installed Vagrant on your machine, you can just say Vagrant help, and it'll give you a list of options that are available. So there's not lots, but yeah, there are a couple of options that are available for you. The one that we want to use is up to spin up a virtual machine. So what this does is it reads the Vagrant file and then brings up a virtual machine for us, which is nothing but a Ubuntu machine. And it will just set up what we have asked it to do in terms of networking and exposing ports and setting up SSH access and things like that. Right. So now this is just the plain virtual machine spin up. Now, in terms of how you can install Vagrant, I'll quickly share another window. while this is happening in the background, I'll quickly share another window and probably explain the steps on how you can install Vagrant. So Vagrant is a tool from HashiCorp, so you can go to Google and then search for Vagrant. Um, you'll go up to a page called vagrantup.com. You have an option to download here based on the machine that you use, either Windows or Mac or even Linux. I don't know what flavors of machine you're using. Assuming it's mostly Windows, you download this binary and just install it. Again, installation is quite straightforward. There are steps to install it as well. If you see the installation instructions here, it'll give you exactly what you need to do, right? There is also an excellent documentation section on the HashiCorp website, which is right here. If you click on docs, it'll give you exactly what you can do and how you can use Vagrant for your approach or what you're trying to do, right? So there is an installation section. There is a commands or a CLI section on what you could do. Like in our case, we used the Vagrant up command, which is here, and it'll tell you what it does, right? So it tells you the name, the ID, and a couple of other options that you can use with this section. So yeah, make a note of this particular website, vagrantup.com, if you plan to use Vagrant, and yeah, you can install it based on the options here. Similarly, you have VirtualBox. I'm just covering this for completeness. VirtualBox is again a product by Oracle. It's free and open source, and everybody can use it and download it. Again, downloads is here based on the release that you have, or sorry, based on the machine you're using, Linux, Mac, or a Windows machine. You can download and install VirtualBox. The documentation again is pretty comprehensive. You do have technical documentation and end user documentation as to see how you set it up and what it actually does, right? Now, excellent. So having covered that, I will quickly jump onto this to another screen and share my terminal again. I hope you can see this again. So as part of that Vagrant up command, as you can see, the machine has successfully booted. It's done whatever it needs to do, and you have a virtual machine. Now, the advantages of Vagrant, right? Why? So some of you might ask, why should I use Vagrant? Why can't I just use VirtualBox and create a machine manually and start doing whatever I have to do? Yeah, that's a very good point. Yes, you can do it, but Vagrant does this a lot faster, and it's it's automated, right? So now, in case I have to, I did something wrong with the box, I want to delete it or destroy it, you can just say Vagrant destroy -f. -f is for force. It'll immediately destroy the machine that it just spun up. Now, if you do this manually on a VirtualBox machine, yes, you can immediately destroy or delete it, but then creation of another machine is a lot more, let's say, intensive task. So that way, you'd probably want to avoid that step and try to use some of these tools, which will make your life a lot easier. Right, so let me say Vagrant up again. You should have a whole virtual machine again, fully configured to our needs, up and available in probably, sorry, less than a minute. Right, I'm just waiting for it to finish. Now, while this comes up, I'll just again probably switch across screens, and I will take you to the WordPress installation website. To show you the steps on how to install WordPress. Right now, I'm on the WordPress website, and I'm on their support or their documentation guideline, and I'm also on their section to see how you can install WordPress. Right. In our case, we are installing WordPress on. Well, you have an overview here. Now, for us to install WordPress, we'll have to go one by one to these steps and then install WordPress. But what I've done is I have gone through these steps beforehand, and I've probably created a text document that you can see in this presentation here. Let me go there. Right. So this particular installation step is what I'll probably open up, and then yeah, you can see the file. Let me quickly share that window as well. That way you can see what's happening. Right. So again, the text might be way too small for your screen right now, but I'll share this when we share the presentation pack so that you get an idea of what we are doing. The steps that I've read, or some of the forums or something that I've read to have this installed, is also what I've mentioned in this document. Right. So let me hop back into the terminal. And let's start installing or deploying WordPress. Right, so now once the machine is booted up, we can easily SSH into the machine by just a single command that says Vagrant SSH. And now what I have done is SSH'd or logged in from my Mac onto the virtual machine itself. As you can see, the prompts have changed here from my Mac to the virtual box. Excellent. Now I'll just start typing in the commands that I need. If you guys remember, as part of our last session, we covered one slide at the very end, which is this DevSecOps or SecDevOps section, right? And as part of any DevOps engineer, you always need to have security at somewhere during your process or during your pipeline. And one of the things that you do as soon as you build your brand new machine is basically update it. So we'll put in a command that asking the machine to update itself for any new releases or to check if there are any new patches, and we'll make sure it downloads it and installs it and gets it ready. Right. Once this command runs, we'll then do the first step. If you remember, we need to install three things. So it'll install three things for WordPress, which is database, the presentation layer, and the web server. Now, the command that we ran here, all it does is updates the machine cache in terms of the packages or the repositories that the machine has access to, and we can then update the machine based on the packages it has updated. Now, in this case, it says in our machine, it says 32 packages can be upgraded. You can run this command to list the upgradable packages. So let's run this command and try to list out the packages that would be upgraded if we run the upgrade command. Now, for the sake of time, I will not be doing this, but in your case, you should be doing it on a day-to-day basis. Right. So now let me come to the next command that we have to install, or the next component we have to install, which is the MySQL database. As you can see, we're again using apt to install the MySQL server packages. It'll again do what it needs to do. I'll not cover that in detail, but at the end of this process, you'll have a MySQL server or a database server running on your virtual machine or inside Vagrant. Right? I'll just wait for the process to complete. Now, again, all of these steps, like I mentioned, is present on the WordPress website. Just for the sake of time, I'm not going through the WordPress website and copying these commands one by one from there. I've done that beforehand and made a text document for easier reference. Now, once MySQL is installed, we'll need to configure MySQL with some of the options that we have as to how we configure MySQL. So I'll quickly go through this. You can probably come back into the video and see what options I used. But these are some of the things that needs to be done as part of the MySQL installation, right? Right. So MySQL is installed, and we have done some sort of security or restrictions on MySQL. You can analyze these options later, or have a look through the video again and see what I've done. Now, once MySQL is installed, we'll need to log into MySQL, which is the database itself, and we'll need to create some users and a database for WordPress installation. Right, I'll quickly paste in three commands. Again, this creation of these commands and the database options are in the WordPress website. I've just copied them here for quick reference. I'll share this document with you as well if you need it. Right, so once MySQL is installed, we'll just quickly restart MySQL service. That way, all our settings are changed. Now the base or the database installation is complete, which is the data tier. We'll now go ahead and install the middleware layer, which is where WordPress will run. Right? So let me quickly install Apache, which is nothing but our web server. And again, we'll leave the machine to do what it needs to do. Cool. It's installed. We'll just make sure it's running and up to date and things like that. Looks like it's all working and good. We will install additional packages for WordPress. If you remember, WordPress runs on PHP, and we're just installing those packages that it needs. Right, so everything's installed, everything works. We'll quickly check if we can access the web server that we have installed, like if it actually works. I'll quickly jump back into my web browser here, and I will access the virtual machine. Because it's running on my local host, I can just say localhost :8080, and it should give me a default web page, which basically means my web server or the middleware bit of the application is working. Excellent. Let's proceed. Now comes the installation, which is basically running the installation script in this document. We'll slowly come to this section now. So right now we have completed the middle tier and the database. Now we're going to install the app. Right, so let me quickly come back to my terminal. Hope you guys can see the terminal again. Right, let me see the documentation again. Okay, looks like I missed one step here, which is to create the database for WordPress. Let me do that again. Log into the database, create a database called WordPress DB, and we'll give privileges for the user to use WordPress DB, and yeah, we'll exit out. Cool. Right, now let's, again, like I said, I will share these steps with you on a separate document. And as part of the presentation pack, when this is circulated to you, it'll be available, or you can revisit the video and look at the steps or commands that is available. Yes, these are all available on the WordPress website. If this is too confusing for you, we'll probably discuss this at the end of the session, where there's a Q&A, and I can take you through the WordPress website on the exact installation steps that are there. Right now, let's quickly go ahead and download the WordPress application itself. It'll probably take a couple of minutes. What we've done is downloaded the latest version of the WordPress app, and it's saved as latest.tar.gz. We'll go ahead and unzip it. And this is what it's downloaded, or the content of the zip file. Now what we're doing is, as part of this command, we will copy everything in the WordPress directory into where www.html. This is where our web server is, and this is where it'll or where the website will run from. We'll change some permissions and we'll set up some options. In our case, we are saying change the ownership of that particular folder to the owner or to the ID that the web server runs in. We definitely don't want it to run as root or an administrator, because then people will have the option to attack your website and break in and things like that. And then we are also changing, creating some folders here, which is the uploads folder, and then setting the permissions here. Excellent. Now, this is all WordPress extraction and installation. The remaining steps are to be done on a browser. So let's head back into the browser again. I'll share my browser, and then let's go here and see if we can access it. Colon 8080/WordPress. Okay, we don't need HTTP. Yes, we need HTTP because it is local. Excellent. So you can see the WordPress website being initialized. There are a couple of steps again that you need to do, which is what we'll do now. It is asking us to enter the database name, database username, password, and host. And then it will go ahead and configure everything that it needs to do. So let's do that. The database name that we created was WordPress_DB. The username was WordPress. The password was password123. And the database host was localhost. So let's hit submit, and hopefully, let's hope it works. So it says it couldn't contact the database server at localhost. We'll just try again. Let me see what I created the database as. Give me a minute. Yep, it should be created as localhost. Let me head back into the terminal and see if I can access it, right? Sorry, 1 minute, guys. I'm trying to check why I can't establish a connection to the host. Try using the machine's hostname and see if that works. That doesn't work either. So let me quickly check something else. WordPress DB, WordPress identified by. The password is wrong. So let me try that. Excellent. So I was typing in the wrong password, and that's why it didn't work. I've given it the right password, and looks like it's ready. So it's asking us to create a site title. Let's say DevOps Labs, username something. Again, this is all locally, so it should be okay to give in weak passwords, but I wouldn't encourage you doing this on an actual production server. So you need to have a very strong password and things like that. Please, guys, always consider security as your main thing if you're going to deploy this in production or even use it locally and expose it on the internet. Excellent. So now let's go ahead and install WordPress. It's doing what it needs to do. And then you're done. It's basically asking us to log in, right? So let's log into the WordPress website as the admin user. By the way, you can give any username and any password you want. For the sake of this demo, I've just chosen admin and admin, but you can choose whatever you want. Excellent. Now we have logged into the WordPress website. This is running on your local machine. You can probably create a post or whatever, right? So let's quickly create a page that says DevOps demo, and then say welcome to DevOps Labs, right? And then save this as a draft, and then this is how you would see it, and then I can publish this, right? It says DevOps demo is now live, and if you want to see the web page, we can go here, and then we can see our you can visit the website, and this is what we created, or this is our content, right? So as you can see, WordPress makes it a lot easier for you to host your own website, be it a photographic website or a forum or anything that you want to host either locally or on the internet, and then it's easy to maintain and manage. But guys, one thing, I'll probably now jump back into the slide again. I'll just leave this website running at the back. Let me go back into the PowerPoint presentation. Right now, we did all the installation steps, but as you can see, the disadvantages of this approach, probably a couple of more disadvantages that I could have added here. I guess you must have noticed how difficult it is to basically run this multiple times. You will have to copy the commands one by one, make sure all the commands are correct, make sure the password is correct. You need a lot of concentration in setting this up, right? As a DevOps engineer, you need to always think of the motto of DevOps, basically automate, or how do we automate everything, right? How we can do this, or how we can improve this process, how do we add efficiency into this process, how do we make this easily repeatable. Now, I've done this, I've taken probably 15-20 minutes to do this. When you do this for the first time, it could take you even longer, but every time you do this, yeah, you will reduce your time, but then there are chances of you making mistakes as well. So we need to figure out ways on improving this, automating this, and not and trying to avoid the dry principle for DevOps, which is don't repeat yourself, right? Heading into the next slide, where again, I've briefly spoken about this, but in the next session, we'll see how we can automate everything. I've said automate, we'll look at automating creation of EC2 instances using Terraform, but we'd probably use Vagrant again in the labs next time. One, because it's local, and two, it's easier to or faster to spin up. But we'll automate everything, or installation of WordPress from Ansible. We'll deploy, even automate deployment of the application in Ansible, and then we'll see how we can back up the data, the content using Ansible, right? So that's probably what we'll cover in the next session. Great. So we are probably approaching towards the end of the session. What I have on the screen here is some practice labs for you that I would like you to practice and get an idea of. So on your local machine, probably what I would like you to do to get an idea of how all these work is install VirtualBox, install Vagrant, get an Ubuntu box, connect to it, try different options that are available in Vagrant to download a box, connect to a box, SSH into a box, and things like that. And then for an application, try installing the same WordPress app, right? So you try setting up a database server, try doing a web server, then the WordPress stack, and try playing around with these tools. Only by doing things practically, you will get some sort of confidence in using these tools. And the more you use these tools, the more it will help you, and more you can realize these benefits of these tools. Right, so we are probably at the end of the session. We'll probably open up, and we have around 15 minutes remaining. So probably we will open up the floor for questions. Before that, let me quickly see if we can discuss on the poll results. Raj, can we get the poll results up? Excellent. So what do we have here? The first question, and the question was, which is the following? So which of the following statement best describes the goal of DevOps? And it's a multiple choice question. Again, it depends on which angle you look at, but the main thing is its purpose is to establish an environment to release more reliable applications faster, and where an application, where an application quality is maintained, right? Now, I'll probably go to the next question, and that's really good that most of you have got this right. Which of the following are popular tools for DevOps? I'd given a couple of random choices, and it looks like everybody's got the right answer, which is all of the above. The next one was, what are the key components of DevOps? Again, these were multiple choice questions, but the correct answer was all of the above. your continuous CI and CD and CT and monitoring and everything is part of DevOps, right? So continuously trying to, again, remember this constant feedback loop cycle whenever you think of DevOps, where you have these phases which are plan, deploy, build, code, release, monitor, and all these stuff. And you'd probably get the right idea. This one, the fourth question was a tricky question. The cloud platform which are not used for DevOps implementation, IBM was the right one because IBM keeps its what's the API and things like that private, so they're not easily available for us. As long as, well, if you're working within IBM or for IBM, yeah, it's easy for you, but IBM is probably the answer there. But for the other three, Google Cloud and Azure and AWS, you can sign up right away and start using their tools and whatever you want. For the fifth question, which of the following is the most important DevOps KPI? The answer was both 1 and 2, mean time, failure, recovery, and deployment frequency. So again, for a DevOps resource, the more deployments you do every day, the more better it is for the organization. Again, the feedback loop cycle, if it works at a, I would say 99% efficiency, you will have multiple releases and multiple deployments happening and very little chance of failure, because you would constantly feedback into the development team what's going wrong, and they would constantly fix it and push it back into production again. So that way it's really good. Question number 6, why do we use Vagrant? Again, most of you got this wrong, got this correct. Vagrant's primary purpose is to create custom isolated development environments. Again, probably this is what I explained in the first session. Using a tool is not DevOps. Using Agile or any of those methodologies is not DevOps. Trying to constantly improve the process and constantly feeding back the issues from the ops team into the development team, from the development team back into the ops team is what DevOps does. Also assist with infrastructure and other things that are required. Excellent. So we've concluded the poll as well, or discussing the poll. I'd probably quickly open up the floor for questions. If there are any questions, please pop them in, and I will try to answer those questions. If I can't, I'll probably get back to you. Right, so I have a question here. So Vagrant is basically a Docker service, but mostly involves manual development and deployment, was it? No, so Vagrant and Docker are somewhat I wouldn't say similar, but it serves the same purpose. So one of the basic differences between Vagrant and Docker, I would say Vagrant is a complete virtual machine in itself, right? Having said that, Docker uses your underlying operating system's resources to just spin up a very, very minimalistic container. But Vagrant runs a full-fledged virtual machine. You have a GUI on it. You can deploy any application you want, and then you can use it as a proper virtual machine to do your day-to-day tasks. So it's different, but it serves a similar purpose. You can use Vagrant boxes to share across working environments between two people, or even in a group, and everybody gets a similar work environment. So that's done. A couple of other questions coming in. In which language Vagrant is written? So Vagrant is written in Ruby. Even the Vagrant file that you saw, it somehow somewhat follows the Ruby syntax. And again, you don't need to know Ruby itself to write Vagrant files. Most of the Vagrant files are available on the Vagrant website itself, or you could just say Vagrant box add something, and it'll do whatever you need to do, and it'll give you a dummy Vagrant file. Excellent. Any other questions? I think I can see one more coming in to the Q&A section. Can we use Vagrant boxes across platforms like AWS or Azure? Yes, of course you can. Vagrant boxes are, again, these are just virtual machines. As long as there is Vagrant and some sort of hypervisor for Vagrant to run, it'll work, right? So again, you don't, it doesn't have to be on AWS or Azure. It can be even your local machine, right? Or even GCP. You can create a box, upload it to Vagrant's public cloud, where a box will be saved and stored, and then you can download it and use it, or you can make it public and where everybody or anybody can download it and use it. So that answers that question. I'm probably waiting for more questions. I have another question here that says, are there any limitations to WordPress? I would say, I would imagine you're saying limitations to a WordPress website. Look, it's a website. It depends on what your use case is. Having said that, the reason we used website or WordPress in this particular instance is just to showcase the difficulty or the number of steps that you need to take to install an application manually, right? So what I wanted to properly embed in your thinking process right now is how we can easily automate this application or this process. Now, I could have just, based on all the steps that I took from a document, I could have easily written a bash script or a command and made this whole process easier. I get that, but I still wanted you guys to think what it would take to make this easier and get in that mindset of how we can automate most of the things that and make your life easier, right? In terms of probably, sorry, to answer your question, yes, WordPress has some limitations in terms of how huge a website can grow or how much media it can hold and things like that. But again, that we're not going to discuss that here. It was just taken as an example. We could have installed any app we wanted. It was just one of the easiest one that we could find and deploy in a 3-tier architecture. Excellent. Hope that answers your question. Waiting for more questions. Oh, there is a question probably coming in here. Which cloud platform, Vagrant Box, does it use to host their virtual machines? If not host machine, like AWS uses their own cloud platform. So Vagrant boxes, again, like I said, when you run Vagrant up on your machine, it uses VirtualBox to host itself, right? So when you run Vagrant up, and once that process is complete, if you open up VirtualBox on the side, you can see a virtual machine running on your host itself. So that your laptop becomes the host, and then you are hosting a virtual machine on top of it. That's locally. But if you, let's assume you spin up AWS EC2 instance, again, I want to specify here, not all types of EC2 instances support nested virtualization. Because EC2 instance itself is virtualized, it doesn't support you to, or it doesn't allow you to virtualize another instance on top of it. But if you select an instance type, I think one of them was N1 something, it would allow you to run multiple virtual machines, and then you can do whatever you want. Or you could, or if you have enough resources or enough, I would say, money or things like that with AWS, you could run it on a physical hardware, and you could do it that way as well. Okay, now most of the questions are answered. We have a couple of more minutes before we end the session. If there are any questions, please let me know. Else, if you're done, also please let me know so that we could end the session earlier if everybody's done with it. Okay, Raj, I think there are no more questions coming in. Oh, okay, sorry, we have one question coming in. There's a question here which is very new, which is, what is Ansible? Right? Ansible, if you remember the previous session, Ansible is a configuration management tool written in Python that helps you to automate repetitive tasks and also manage repetitive tasks. Its main motto is to be ID important, which basically means no matter how many times you run the same command over and over again, it will not make any changes to the system, right? So, for example, if assuming the same setup that I did right now, if I run this as a bash script and run the steps again, it will still download the WordPress app from the website. It'll still extract it. It'll still paste it back onto the things, and it'll do everything all over again. But Ansible, what it does is it checks if the things are in place. If it's in place, it will not do anything, and it'll just skip that step or skip that play. I'll probably cover that in the next session to show you benefits of Ansible as well. Ansible is one of the widely used tools for configuration management out there. And yeah, having some knowledge of Ansible definitely helps you guys. Another question, can we use Docker instead of Vagrant? Yes, definitely you can. There's no reason why you can't. In fact, you can use Vagrant to spin up Docker containers. I just didn't use it that way because I thought it would be too complex for you guys to go into that level of detail. I just wanted to keep it simple, and hence I used a virtual machine to spin up a website or a web server. We'll probably cover Docker in the last session and just give you an overview of it. If you need more session or more info on Docker, yeah, do let me know and I can cover that as well. Okay, what's in the next session is one of the questions that we got. I'd probably go back to the start of the presentation pack here. In the next session, we'd probably use Vagrant again to spin up a virtual machine. That way, we get our target machine or target instances very quickly. And then we'll do the same application setup that we did now, where we copy pasted individual commands, but we will run it through automation, and you'll see how easy it is to, and how quickly it is to set things up. So probably the next session would probably focus more on Ansible and how we could set it up. And if the question, or if you guys want to see this being set up on AWS, yeah, we can do this on AWS, and we can go from there. And that way you get to see how AWS looks and how it works and things like that. But again, next time there will be a lot of to and fro between a terminal, a text document, and things like that, just to get you an idea of switching context between things. But yeah, we can definitely accommodate it. Cool. Any other questions? If not, we are just on time, so we could probably stop the session. Raj?
Thanks a lot, Sunil, for today's session. Definitely very helpful. And I request everyone who wants to know more about all this, please complete the assignment that is towards the end. It'll give you more skills. Because attending sessions without actual practice will not be very helpful. So if you really want any help in terms of running this, please reach out, but definitely do this before the next session. So thanks everyone. Thanks Sunil once more. And we'll send out the slides and additional information and the video link later. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thanks guys. Bye.